Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. Nick and George here with...
Exorcist 3, and a reason why we're talking about Exorcist 3, which is a new series we're launching.
There's actually, you don't need a reason to talk about Exorcist 3.
That's very true. You absolutely don't need
I
a
mean,
reason.
you can just bring it up whenever the hell you want.
No, I
legally.
mean, I think we're double doing episodes. I think we've already talked about Exorcist 3, but it's been a long time, and there's a reason to revisit it, and you just don't need a reason, like you said, because it's an amazing movie.
Yeah. It's actually really weird that we're talking about this because I did some traveling recently, and on one of the flights, I randomly bought Wi-Fi. I never get the Wi-Fi. I just put on a movie. But this one, I was like, I don't buy the Wi-Fi. Watch some TikToks.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, do some other stuff. And then I was like, well, let me just read about some Exorcist 3.
Weird, before we even decided to talk about it for the podcast.
It was weird. And then on the flight back, the guy next to me was watching.
Well, got decapitated.
He got decapitated, and he's squirting blood everywhere. And some guy in the front said, I didn't know where the bloody went. He was watching Patton.
Oh, no, my
On the way
God.
back. Yeah, so there.
This is the creepiest thing that's happened to Halloween, and Halloween's over.
Yeah, and what's also funny is during these flights, I also watched the original Exorcist.
What the hell is happening?
I don't know.
All right. Well, I'm glad we were forced by forces beyond our control to talk about this
Which
movie.
is kind of creepy, given the subject.
But the reason we're talking about this movie is because we did a series that we didn't finish, which was built, believe it or not, into the idea of the series.
Which is fun. I got to talk about that because I was having some emotional problems with that too.
Right. I know you were. So the series is called How Low Can We Go? And the idea is that we take basically Rotten Tomatoes and then other aggregator sites like Metacritic or whatever, because Rotten Tomatoes sucks, what most aggregators do. But the idea is to watch one horror movie at each percentage point rating on the scale all the way down from 59%, which is technically unfresh on Rotten Tomatoes, down to 0%. And at 0%, the horror movies on offer are pretty insane, right? And it gets pretty bleak even as you head past the 40s and 30s. Exorcist 3, needless to say, is at 59%, so this would be the beginning of the venture. But that's the series we did. We got too depressed to finish it from all the awful stuff we had.
That was the thing. Okay, we got to talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
I had saw this thing. I think James Gunn said, you always finish a project. And I got some kind of hair up my ass that because we never finished How Low Can We Go, that I don't know. I failed.
It's tainted, or we can't. Right?
Yeah, like I didn't complete it.
Right.
And I forgot the whole reason.
Right.
The title is How Low.
Right.
We found out.
Right. That's right. Exactly. The part of the suspense of it is it's a little bit Mystery Science Theater down there at the bottom, right? Like
it's hairy.
It's the mad science experiment of. Because we love horror, so we don't like watching bad horror unless it's fun bad horror, but you're not guaranteed to pick that in advance, right? Like, there's a lot of times where we're picking these blind, or we're getting suggestions from people, which is where you come in if you're listening to this, of which ones to watch at which bracket. So, like, for on the social media, we'll put out, like, we've got it down to this, these 6 movies out of 58%, which one should we watch? And sometimes we put it up to a vote and let you decide. So sometimes we're watching something against our will. So it really, there's suspense to whether you're going to make it through this experience without losing your minds. And I'm excited to try this again because I think we will make it this time. I'm determined.
Well, and if we don't, that's okay because that's the title. It's not make it to the bottom. It's
right.
How low can we possibly go until we decide let's watch something good.
And last time it was we crapped out at like 21%. So let's see how.
Yeah, I was trying to look at what the last.
It was somewhere. I don't even think we got into the teaser. I think it got pretty weird when you get down to those movies. We picked a couple bad ones and it was aggravating.
Yeah, it gets to the point where you're like, do I really like?
Right, we're gonna do it this time. So, but the thing is, we know what we're doing now better. You have a metaphor for this, the video game metaphor. Explain this.
Well, it's sort of like when you beat a video game. Like, even though we didn't really beat the video game. Well, you know what? We accomplished the video game within the rules that were set for the game.
Fair enough.
And I'm thinking of like. When you beat like a game like Metal Gear Solid, you can then start the game with, depending on one of the actions you take mid-game, you either get unlimited ammo or you get like an invisibility suit, and then you get to
Right.
run through the game again, but you have this. It's a completely different experience because you
Right.
have this advantage.
Right, which we have now. We're invisible now. I
Yeah.
can't even see you. It's fine.
Well, unfortunately, the Invisible Man is not going to be on here.
No, it's not.
Not the
None of them are. Maybe Invisible Man Returns or something. I'll look.
Something like that, or that Monster Party House, wherever we saw it, the New Beverly, whatever that had him in there.
But the good news is we know we're doing better now. We're not going to redo unless we're actually compelling reason to anything that we had done before. But we're going to seek a new path. But we know we're doing in the choosing a little bit better. And I think we're a little better equipped to find the good things in the bad things.
Because it's been a while.
Right. It has been a while. And I'm excited to do it again. And to kick it off, you can't get better than Exorcist 3. Because part of the point of How Low Can We Go was some of these movies absolutely do not belong where they are.
Right.
For one reason or another. Sometimes they're too high, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they're way too low. And Exorcist 3 is a 96% Rotten Tomatoes feeling movie to me.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
It should be up at in the top tier of movies. And the fact that we're even talking about this movie at 59% it's not a wonderful life.
No, it's not. In fact, I feel like my head's been chopped off, and they're making me holding it up and making me watch my body twitch around as a little gift.
What's new about this movie to you? What have you realized that now that you've rethought about it,
Okay.
rewatched it?
I can sort of. So this all happened it's also because we were traveling. So like I wanted to watch movies while I did some traveling. So like I watched Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
I watched some. I started finishing Ash versus Evil Dead season 3, which
Right.
is very
which
good.
is incredible.
And one of the movies that I wanted to watch was The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched it, and it's crazy. We're on, we're doing the podcast for a while, but I got to be honest with you.
Right.
I'd never seen The Exorcist.
Right. No, I know you told me that.
Yeah, and so I had a Halloween list that I think I talked to some of the people who follow us, like some of the movies I had on there, like Hell
Yep.
House, LLC.
Yep.
A handful of others that I really wanted to get to. And Exorcist is one of them.
Yep.
And I really liked Exorcist 3. Like, I love that movie.
Yes.
And so I was like, well, let's see the original. Let's see.
You are the weirdest Exorcist fan ever. The fact that The Exorcist is in the shadow of Exorcist 3 makes you the weirdest.
And spoiler alert, still is.
That's amazing.
Because I watched it, and believe me, it's a great movie. Like, it's undeniable. Like, it just.
I cannot believe we're starting here. This is amazing.
Yeah. So it's undeniably.
This is
great
my
movie.
favorite thing ever. The Exorcist doesn't live up to Exorcist 3.
It doesn't. I'm sorry for me. I know people are going to think that's batshit crazy.
That's hilarious.
But I think fundamentally, like so
Well, here's the thing. I saw Exorcist 3 with you, or at the same time you did. We watched it either together or the same day because we were preparing for the podcast. And I remember talking to you immediately afterwards, and I remember knowing it was a special experience for you. Like, it was one of those times where you watch a movie and it just hits you. And it even grew on you more than that. I know that you really enjoyed Exorcist 3. Like, it was a special thing. So that's hard to compete with.
Yeah.
Right. But The Exorcist is amazing. So that's also a thing.
I mean, it is like
No, you don't have to. You don't have to think so. I'm just telling you that I think you have the weirdest bias ever because you had such a good time with Exorcist 3, right? Like, there are certain movies I've watched in my life where it's not just the movie, but it's how I saw the movie. Like, that happened with me with Elm Street 3. I saw Elm Street 3 on a particular night in a particular mood, and it just hit really right. So like I always thought to myself, I maybe I overrate this movie, and then more and more people were talking about how great it was or whatever. But
you know what's funny though? I actually, now that I'm sitting here reflecting on it, I don't actually think I'm that crazy because there is one other person that agrees with me.
Oh, tell me who.
William Peter Black.
This is a good point.
The author of The Exorcist.
Let's talk about this. This is a good point.
So for those of you who
because
don't,
he's such an interesting piece of the whole story of why these movies are great.
It is weird. So I've never read The Exorcist. I just watched the first one. For those who don't know, the author of the original Exorcist, the book, directed The Exorcist 3. He originally wasn't. He was trying to give it off to, it was another big name like John Carpenter or something like that. It was a big name that he was trying to give it to, and there were some differences and it didn't pan out. So he decided The Exorcist 3 is this man's directorial debut, which is so crazy.
It's
so crazy to me. And I was doing some reading, and he himself even thinks that this movie is I don't remember if it was a better movie.
So
or
he thinks the one
movie.
he did is better.
Yeah,
that's sus. Okay,
it is sus. It's very sus. And there are things that The Exorcist did, like the progression of Regan is very good, and the makeup is amazing.
Right. Well, we're not here to talk about The Exorcist. But the thing is, I think it's hilarious that we are here to talk about Exorcist 3, and that it's a really special movie in the way that like Dagon is special to me, right? I know that I think Dagon is better than it probably actually is.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think Dagon is the Citizen Kane of sea aquatic monster.
But so my biggest, just to get the comparison out of the way, is I know The Exorcist is some of like the main subtext of it is a man dealing with his faith, but The Exorcist 3 just does it so much better.
That part of it, I think it does.
Yeah,
I think you're right. See, the thing is, The Exorcist 3 was directed by a writer, right?
Yeah.
So there's going to be a richness to what a writer does that I don't think a director could ever get if the writer knows how to use a camera and make things happen that way, because they usually don't. Usually writers are, I mean, look at Stephen King made Maximum Overdrive, right?
Yeah.
Which is fun, but it's not The Exorcist 3, right? So one of the things about this that I didn't realize the last time we had watched it or talked about it, whatever, that just blew my mind was that I was sold on every single character in this movie within 5 seconds of meeting every single character in this movie, right? Like some movies, some of the characters either fall flat or the way you're introduced to them, like, or it takes time to grow on you. Like, you know, that happened with me with Skyfall, for example, the James Bond movie, where Javier Bardem I was like, this is weird, like whatever. But literally 3 scenes into the movie, I was like, oh, this is a great performance of a villain, or whatever, right? So like, this is one of those movies where every single character is, the second you meet them, even if they're the most minuscule character, like all the crazy old people who are going to do killer things when they're possessed, but are super sweet when you meet them, or the detective's friend, or even the people who work at the asylum or the institute or wherever they're keeping these people, right? Because there's one guy in this movie who's in charge of, I think, the hospital, and the first time you meet him, he's literally practicing a speech to himself to nothing, like in a mirror, like he's like preparing to give the acceptance of an Academy Award or something, but he's just some guy rando who runs a hospital. Like, there are things that happen with these characters that shouldn't work that just work so well in this movie. It's gotta be because the writer understood, like, he only went with what interested him. So this movie's only filled with interesting things.
And since we did the episode, it was one of the films that they chose for the last drive-in with Joe Bob.
Oh, that's right.
And
I forgot
so we got
all
to like
about that,
which was really great because he does all the amazing.
He did great work with it.
Great insight. And but even watching it a second time, so like I remember, one of the tests we always talk about, like what makes a great movie is like you remember like where you were and like what you ate and the smell. Right. I remember this shitty pizza I was making. It was like some cheese crust kind of bullshit with a lot of meat and stuff like that. It was, but I remember it. I forgot to like spray the pan. So I was trying to like get the aluminum out of the pizza, and I was like, this feels kind of dangerous. But I remember, I also think I had the house to myself, and it was sort of like, oh, I'm just gonna watch the last drive-in, have a good, Friday night,
right?
And the further we got into the movie, and like the later it got in the night, because with the intermissions that Joe Bob does and talk, it really stretches. It does. It does what Dracula did when I caught it on Bravo. Like it made it kind of like an epic, and throughout the night, I just felt myself getting more and more and more unsettled.
Totally.
And it dawned on me that, like, because the first watch, I don't think I really absorbed like how insanely creepy everything is that's underneath happening in this movie. I was just absorbing the performance of Brad Dourif and George C. Scott, and the writing and everything. But that second watch, like the atmosphere of this movie, which they shot on site in one of those college towns, like in Maryland or some shit like that. Like they went to like a really cool place to shoot the movie,
right? Totally.
But it really pulled through on the last drive-in, and I understood the movie on a completely different level.
That's interesting.
Than even with the first one. So not only did I enjoy the movie so much the first watch, the second watch it gave me another idea of what this movie was about and how it can be effective.
See that, because that's amazing to me. So you're having an experience with a movie. You're not just watching a movie now. You're having an experience with it because it's changing on you when you see it the next time, which is a surprise. It's a thing you don't expect, right? And that's part of the magic of a really well-made movie, right? That's one of the things that I love about this is that the characters. Imagine meeting characters after horror movies have happened. Right. So like meeting the guy who lives next door to Johnny Depp's character in Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, what's his day like the next day? Did you hear? Oh my God, this happened. Right. And everyone, the rumors and like whatever. When the characters you meet in Exorcist 3 feel like they've already been beaten, but they still have fight in them. But they already know they're on the losing side because the force of evil in the Exorcist universe is so heavy that the dread is already there from the jump of the movie, right? The characters they're like pre-traumatized, right? And they change. It fits like what the Exorcist 3 is doing with how hard it is to fight evil with George C. Scott's character and Karras again to some extent, right? And what they were doing with the Exorcist in The Exorcist, where it's not easy to do this, right? You feel the weight of everything the George C. Scott and the other characters have to do. It's heavy, but it's fun. You don't get that combination in movies very often, where they feel heavy, but they're still a blast, right? Like I could post pictures from a dozen scenes in The Exorcist 3, which no one gave a crap about when it came out, right? Like whatever, it was like unappreciated for sure. And if you see the woman on the roof or the ceiling, like whatever the scene, or you see the famous jump scare scene or whatever, you feel like glee as a horror fan. You don't just look at that and go whatever. You get like a shiver and you're like, that's good, right?
Everything is well earned, even the famous jump scare.
Yeah,
like, nothing about that jump scare is cheap.
Nope.
Like it really, really worked the audience over to be like, believe me, like it's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it. And then by the time they're about to say it again, it happens and it scares the shit out of you. One of the things I read was like that George C. Scott like really loved the script.
Oh, that's cool.
So like he read it and immediately like he saw something in it. Because I mean, obviously it's William Peter Blatty, so it's not like some schmuck,
Right.
This guy's definitely got the chops. But like the other thing that I really like about it is when I'm watching something like a Paranormal Activity or something that deals with like an otherworldly thing,
right,
taking over or fucking with you, is like I always think of like video games like Diablo. Like, okay, well, like where are the the heroes who can just pick up the swords or use spells and fight this thing. Like it always kind of bothered me that like movies didn't do that. It's usually like, hey, if there's a demon, like you're fucked.
Right.
Like hopefully the exorcism works out, which The Exorcist 3 wasn't even supposed to have an exorcism.
That's so weird.
In it. And apparently they shot it and William Peter Blatty thinks it's a better movie and
without the exorcism.
Right. So like
because it was Legion, what it was called originally, right?
Yeah, and so I would love to see that. Like,
for sure.
But no, just one of the things that I really appreciated about it is my response is like I always want to see like some very, rough and tumble like way to deal with evil. And George C. Scott has a gun on him the whole time,
Right.
But the way that he ends up having to like deal with this shit is he has to be completely honest with himself. Right. And it's not this Western cowboy, we're going to have a shootout thing. He has to have such a deep personal moment kind of like to the devil or to the guy to the Gemini killer's master.
Yep.
And that is how he has to overcome it. And
Right.
it's not this big hulking, veins coming out of your biceps kind of fight. It's this
Right.
like very deep, cathartic realization in real time way that he has to deal with getting rid of this evil and getting it out of Father Karras.
Right. And what's amazing about what you just said is it's exactly right, but it's also what lots of directors want to do or think they're doing.
Right.
And when they try to do it, they either do it over cerebral and it just ends up boring and talky, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they realize they can't do it and they just do action endings.
Yeah.
But William Peter Blatty managed to do everything you just described, but it's still thrilling.
Yes.
Right? Because that's the hardest thing to do is to do all the cool shit you just said, but also make it exciting like a ride would be, right?
Yeah.
And it manages to do both somehow.
Well, I I don't care who you are. If you have Brad Dourif and George C. Scott,
Right. Well,
like
good point.
something good is inevitably going to come out.
I want to talk about Brad Dourif in a second. I just got to tell you, like, one new thing to me that I hadn't had when we watched Exorcist 3 back in 2016 or wherever we did the last episode is, I hadn't watched a reaction video to Exorcist 3, right? So I've seen a lot of reaction videos. They fascinate me for some reason to horror movies. And in all of the ones I've ever watched, this is the only time I've ever seen this happen. This guy was just watching the Exorcist 3 and reacting to it. And then the famous jump scare scene, which, he had interesting reactions to a bunch of things that weren't just the jump scare, was just where you really want to see what people do.
Yeah.
But the jump scare scene happens and the guy, it was like an involuntary reflex. His hands fluttered like they were birds, right? And he was like trying to cover his eyes, but he couldn't quite do it. And then he looked behind him. And what's
Oh my
creepy is
God.
in his setup, there's like a window that's clearly behind him, like you right now, right? It would be.
Thanks.
And right, exactly. I'm sorry, and it's dark, but like he literally looked behind. I've never seen a horror movie make a person look behind themselves on TV,
Wow.
right before. So this movie still packs that true punch that you would want from this genre, right? So there's that, but the Brad Dourif thing is just insane. I mean, it's just insane how good he is, and it's insane that he manages to do, like, his range to me. He was incredible on Deadwood, and on Deadwood he was completely convincing as the only person in the entire cesspit of that universe that genuinely wanted to take care of people, to like keep them together. And in this movie, he plays the most terrifying person who wants to tear people apart and thinks people are absolutely worth no thing at all, right? Like the difference between the two things is incredible. He's an incredible actor.
They also do a really good job at slowly building him up because they don't just throw all the chips,
No.
like on the first go. Like it's a slow build up. And I think it was Joe Bobber watching like a YouTube. I watch a lot of the YouTube people where they do like the behind the scenes, but I think they started to like tweak his voice too.
Oh yeah, I remember
like
someone
the
saying
further
that.
it goes on or some shit like that. So like just the subtle from a first time director, like just understanding those. He was just there to serve his story,
Right.
and I mean this is what you get. Like sign me up, dude.
Just get excellence. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, so this is as good as it's going to get on How Low Can We Go? Right. Let's just acknowledge probably. Although I
Yeah.
remember getting surprised by a few. I remember the first one, for some reason, I don't know about you, but for me, I don't know why. The first one that always comes to mind when I try to think of a surprise one that I hadn't seen at all, had low expectations of from the concept or whatever, because I didn't know anything else about this movie going in, and really enjoyed, was Bad Moon. Bad Moon always comes up to my mind as
That
like
was
the most pleasant surprise, movie. So, but Bad Moon is not as good as Exorcist 3.
Yeah, Jennifer's Body would be on our list. I think we did that for 45. That was a pretty damn good one.
Yeah, that shouldn't be 45% at all.
No, but I would still probably put Exorcist 3. above Jennifer's body.
I mean, that's valid. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to think about it because they're such different movies. But
Yeah, I mean, it's not apples.
but
It's apples and
but
oranges.
regardless, you're right. Like, it's going to be very hard for it to get this good again. So we might as well enjoy this moment because we're going to 58% next and 57% after that, and we'll see where we get. Luckily, I remember during the top half of this, before we get to the region of the 20s. Or low 20s or whatever, is that horror movies are grossly underestimated by critics. So a lot of times we can just find gems pretty easily because they're way under where they should be. Like Gremlins 3 is probably in here somewhere, Gremlins 2 is probably in here somewhere, and it shouldn't be, right? So like the new batch should definitely be higher than what it probably is on Rotten Tomatoes. So it'll be a treat for us to find it like 54 just laying there like a prize. So I think we're okay for
every now and then there's a diamond in the rough.
The time being. But in the meantime, we would love for you to let us know. Come to the Facebook page, Facebook group, do whatever however you want to hit us up on social media. Let us know which movies we should be doing at which percentage point way station as we go on the journey downward and downward.
It's going to be curious how we navigate this time.
Right. Well, yeah, because we're also going to try to use not Rotten Tomatoes exclusive things.
Yeah, we're
so
gonna try to like mix in some other shit, so get a little variety.
I don't go to Metacritic, even though it's aesthetically way better looking than Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been to Metacritic.
I don't know why, but
to me, I'm like, you're a liar.
I don't trust Meta.
Yeah, it's like when we went to London and they all used like TripAdvisor. I'm like, no, you don't. you don't really use TripAdvisor. You tell me you use Yelp. And I was like, no, that's our jam. Seriously.
Right. Oh, and we wanted to shout out Sarah Claxton. It's this amazing person who had reached out to our Facebook page. And she has this incredible business she's created called Envied Clothing and Decor. She's a wreather. The timing of this couldn't be better for me. I was a little bummed that Halloween was ending, and I was thinking about the holidays to come, and I'm watching all the what Mariah Carey's song is dreadful memes that were floating around the internet. Thinking about how we're already talking about this. No one's even talking about Thanksgiving because Christmas eats up every whatever. And it all makes me think of wreaths, but that's usually boring. But it's not boring with Sarah because she makes these incredible horror-themed wreaths that just kind of blew my mind. She had one for Candyman that was whatever, but she, I think, is the first wreather who's ever worked with the Universal, which is an incredible, what a great partnership to have, and what a great to be the first of anything is really, really cool. So go check her page and creations out.
What's it called when you are? Is there a name for when you're in the middle of wreathing? Is that a thing? Do wreathers wreathes?
I think that must be it, right?
It's got to be
you're
the
currently
verbiage.
wreathing. I don't know, but we know a professional, so we could ask for sure. But her stuff is amazing, so go check it out.
You could have a custom wreath made. What would you have one made of?
I mean, Exorcist 3 comes to mind because that's pretty, high up there in my favorites. Honestly, it's probably not doable. Mine isn't doable because my obsession, my favorite mainstream horror movie of all time, Cat People. I don't know what you would do.
Oh, that's doable.
Yeah, but it would be boring to just do cats. It would also be creepy, right?
You could come with something cool.
No, I don't think there's a good way to do something so basic as cats, right? That's why Candyman is interesting because there's no other Candyman thing where cats are just like cats. Every third person owns a cat. I'm looking at a cat currently while I'm saying this.
Well, that's true. I would have a wreath with a bunch of photos of Aretha Franklin. So it's a wreath of Franklin's or something like that. I don't know how the verbiage works out, but I think it might be kind of cool.
Nothing says success like wreathing and puns. Natural combination.
Yes, but check it out. I saw the Candyman one. That was pretty
yeah,
awesome.
No, it is absolutely amazing. And check out Exorcist 3 if you haven't seen it, and check out our community so you can let us know what to watch next. And I think that's it. I'm lingering, I think, because I know that this is such a great moment for the series and that we're headed downward.
What about the Brad Dourif thing?
Oh yeah, that's right. We had wanted to talk about Brad Dourif. We can do that for sure. Like that.
I was ready for it.
One of the things that I think about Brad Dourif, this is like a fake encore.
It's not
Literally
fake
felt like the episode was ending. One of the things I thought was interesting is, I mean, one of the unique things that people talk about, but for some reason you don't see talk about as, it's just like like that's weird, but this might be the only major horror movie I can think of where two actors play the same character simultaneously. Cat people, I said it. Now cats are
now
bumping the
Gatsby's
microphone.
he's never bumped the microphone until we talk about.
But it's weird. I don't remember cutting back and forth from a character being played by two actors in this manner in a non-art house, kind of just like from a studio movie, right? So this movie has this weird thing happening, but it's so good, right? And both actors are great. I mean, we're raving about Brad Dourif, but both performances are amazing, right? So, and I like that it's unsettling that it's two different people, and you don't see that very often. I was like, they should do that more. Like, where would that have worked in the past history of movies where it just would have been better if Brad Dourif played half of the part instead of the person playing the whole part? Do you have any examples?
Mommy Dearest.
Oh God, how would that work?
I just want to see him scream at some kids. Honestly, that's just
you're just manipulating Brad Dourif.
Yeah, kind of.
No, I was thinking more like a Godzilla situation, right? Where like half the time it's Godzilla stamping around a city, but half the time it just cuts to Brad Dourif like swinging his arms at buildings.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like Mommy Dearest, it would be Joan Crawford. All the nice parts, but when she has to get like really pissed off, for some reason, it just cuts to like a grown man.
Oh, the nice parts. That's 3 minutes of the movie. the nice preamble, and then the rest of it's Dourif all the way down.
I would have Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds.
Oh,
but I would replace the birds.
Oh no!
I would replace the birds with Brad Dourif's face. And he's screaming at him.
Oh, photos. That's creepy. That is creepy, and he's known for that. So that's okay.
I would do that.
That's good. That's good. I will buy that one. I'm trying to imagine if there's a moment where it legitimately isn't just funny, but like where it works, right? Where you put Brad Dourif in, and the movie just automatically gets better. I couldn't think of an obvious example off the top of my head because there's sometimes where it doesn't. It's fine. He makes basically everything better, I would imagine. But because when do you want less Brad Dourif in a movie, right?
There's some weird ones. Well, no, these are all funny.
Go ahead. Tell me the funny ones.
I'd put him in Mean Girls. Just to watch Brad Dourif bully Lindsay Lohan.
You are manipulating Brad Dourif to get him to. You're targeting him. You're like swatting fictional characters.
Okay, but if I had to pick a legitimate,
like so imagine the classic The Wolfman, but with Brad Dourif doing the Wolfman half the time, right? Mm-hmm. Does that movie get better or worse? So in that case, it probably gets worse because then you're just shattering the
I don't know. He'd probably be a good Wolfman.
Idea of the. I mean, I'm sure he would be a good Wolfman. If you had a creepy example, right? If half of Seven was Brad Dourif playing Kevin Spacey's character, that movie doesn't get worse. It might be just as good.
I think that would
right.
I think that would get a little better.
I don't know. You'd have to explain it a little differently, but I mean, he's that good. He's just that talented a guy. So yeah, but anyway,
I want
to go ahead.
I was trying to think if you could place Brad Dourif anywhere within the David Lynch universe. So you can pick from anything. Like where
would he not worked with David Lynch?
Where do you think Brad Dourif would enhance any of David Lynch's work?
So there's a weird groundedness to Brad Dourif that doesn't work in a lot of Lynchian places. I think you would think he'd be a natural for it, but I think he's a little too everyman somehow. I think that's a testament to him because he's unique. Like he's a unique actor, or at least that's how I think of him that way. So there's a lot of places you can't drop him where it just gets like out of hand. But it would have been really interesting to see him, believe it or not, play the Bill Pullman character in Lost Highway. Would have been really interesting because Bill Pullman gave that character like a polish and then a savagery underneath that was really interesting, but nothing else in that movie looked polished. It was basically a noir, so everything was grimy.
Right.
So his performance was like shiny somehow. I don't think that it's bad. I think maybe Brad Dourif wouldn't even do as good a job, but it'd be interesting to have him take a try at it because I think he would have made it weirder.
I know the right answer to this.
What's the right answer?
American Psycho.
Oh shit! Right. See, now how would that go?
Because that movie has a lot of dual perspectives.
It does, right? But like Bale nailed that so hard. Like I thought, yeah. But it would be interesting to see. See, that's what I'm saying. Is that?
Yeah.
But the concept is actually different than what we're doing right now because the concept is like one of the things. Now we're back into the podcast episode.
Encore.
One of the things that De Palma is known for is split screens. It's a technique. You don't see it very often, and when you see it, you're often watching a De Palma movie because there's very few practitioners of this. Right? They use it in The Grifters a lot, which I think is Stephen Frears, but this is just a technique, right? The technique is two actors are playing the same character. They do it in art house movies, with some regularity, but you don't see it in just straightforward narrative horror movies the way that Exorcist 3 does it. So the idea is, does it get more interesting when two people are playing one person, right? So like, would Split have been better if you were actually seeing a different face when he was a different personality and they had a two-actor situation, going on? Mm-hmm. And that's how I was thinking of it is does the dual part like, and the only ones I could think of were ridiculous and funny because I just wanted to put Brad Dourif in there and watch him like wreak havoc on people, which is kind of what you were doing. So
in that case, I think we got something with Mean Girls. I think that's probably the actual closest. I've never seen it.
I'm going with Godzilla. I'm going with Godzilla. I think he would make an excellent Godzilla. I think he's got it in him.
No, Meet the Parents. When Robert De Niro is interrogating him, it's Brad Dourif.
See, now that would be fun. That's what I'm talking about. That all right? Cool.
Okay, that's where we will end.
Fantastic, and then we will see you next week at 58%.
At 58%, and if
on some aggregator site, we'll figure it out.
In the meantime, subscribe wherever the frick you listen to. I don't know where it is.
But we appreciate that you are.
We appreciate you listening. And until next time, stay scary. Watch a bunch of horror movies. We'll see you at 58.